So we're a little late starting because something always goes wrong. Last night, a pencil fell into the piano, and it may still be there, but I am confident that it doesn't make any difference because I was here and heard a few chords played, and it's beautifully, it's playing. The play was just as beautiful as it always is when Laurana Mitchelmore plays. I was certainly privileged to discover this place. It'll be exactly 3 years ago next month, and it was when I came to read, and actually Diane Johnson had told me about it. But it's difficult to describe a place like this. It is so unusual because Becky and David have made it so unusual. They're both artists, as you see from David's photographs on the wall. He happens at the same time to be an eminent physicist. And then Becky is, of course, a wonderful artist, and you'll hear more about her in a moment. But I'm going to begin by telling you something about the singers, and I'll introduce them in the order of their appearance. And I've mentioned already Rebecca, who is the guiding spirit of this enterprise. As many of you know, she sang for some 20 years in the Paris Opera and interpreted a number of minor roles in this opera. After retiring in 2000, she sang and directed a chamber opera, Queen of the Night. She will be our Queen of the Night, interpreting regally an important comic role. Aviva Timonier, a soprano, has a repertoire ranging from sacred music to opera, of operetta, oratorio, lieder, and art songs. In her singing, she has what one critic has called pure musical timbre and intelligent interpretation. James Morgan, baritone, has sung in the choirs of St. Paul's Cathedral and Westminster Abbey, and over the years in various capacities in the for the BBC. With the Deller Consort, he's toured Europe and the United States. He now lives and performs and teaches in London and comes over to Paris regularly twice a month to give lessons to a number of privileged students who are, some of them, here this evening. Arliene Thiel, soprano, studied at the University of Texas, where she received a master's degree in voice, and later at the Rotterdam Observatory in Holland. At the Graz Opera in Austria, she interpreted several roles in Mozart and Rossini operas, and since coming to France in 1977, she's divided her time between performing mostly chamber music and oratorio and teaching. She interprets brilliantly this evening a tragic piece that shows the full range and quality of her remarkable voice. Now, at the center, for all of this program, will be, of course, Laurana Mitchelmore. The poem of mine that you received with your invitation, Woman at the Piano, was on the back of the invitation. And for me, in Paris, the woman at the piano is Laurana Mitchelmore. She's internationally known as a soloist. She's accompanied the greatest singers at Metropolitan and the Vienna State Opera, and it's wonderful that in spite of all of her activities, flying back and forth to the United States recently to arrange a wedding, she's been willing to come here this evening. So I think we may be ready to begin if the performance will come on. I'm going to read Well, maybe I should read this first. I don't know.
We'll come.
Good. All right. Well, as I say, we begin with the woman at the piano. This is a poem that was actually commissioned. I was asked, as were several other poets, to write a poem based on a work of art, an American work of art, which was perhaps one that was available to the public in museums, a piece of sculpture or painting. And I chose the wonderful little piece, wooden piece, of Elie Nagelmann, who's one of my favorite sculptors. And you know, he was very much influenced by folk art. And this shows a wonderful picture of the woman at the piano with her arms lifted like this and a great anticipation. He was perhaps one of the most sophisticated of the modern sculptors, but he was also enjoying the influence of folk music. The setting is, this is being heard for the first time, is by Dan Tepfer, who happens to be the son of our leader here, and he's studied as an astrophysicist at Edinburgh, and is now, and he's also won prizes in classical music, and also has been a jazz musician. So I think he's put all of himself into this poem, and I think you'll enjoy what he's done with it. First, the poem. When the tall, thin lady started to play, the notes flew up and out and away. Like the pink in her cheeks and her dresses loops, they rose in curves, they rolled in hoops, till the chickens flew out of the chicken coops. The rooster crowed, the donkey brayed, and the cat meowed. She raised her hands, she lifted her feet. What was she playing? An anthem? A hymn? Nobody knew, but oh, it was sweet. How thin she was, how tall and prim, but oh, how she played. Everything in you went loose inside, and the world of a sudden became so wide and open and joyous and free. The fish came flying out of the sea, the mountains knelt, the birds went wild, the lady smiled. And all you could do was hold on to your seat and simply say, for heaven's sake, lady, play, play, for heaven's sake, lady, play.
When the tall, thin lady started to play, the notes went up and out and away.
choices of performance this evening. The music was written by a friend of mine, Morris Grossman, who is a professor emeritus of philosophy at Fairfield College in Connecticut. And he has done many other things on the side, and one of them is composing music. He was very tentative about doing this poem, but he liked it so much he did. And some of the people here who know far more about music than I do said it was okay, so we're glad to have it in any case. This is a poem I wrote in 1937. A few years ago I published this selection of my poems, 1937, 1997. And this was one of the early poems included. Actually, I wrote it when I was in college, and I hadn't ever published it afterwards until this book came out, and I never throw anything out, to my wife's dismay, but I found it in a folder, and I thought, well, this is not so bad, and so I put it in the book. And it's really about writing poetry and writing lyric poetry, which I hope mine is. And it's a kind of credo. It's called Structure of Song. Its syllables should come as natural and thorough as sunlight over plum or melon in the furrow. Rise smoother than the hawk or gray gull ever could, as proud and freely walk as deer in any wood. So lightly should it flow from stone so deep in earth that none could ever know what torment gave it birth. Last year the gold medal from the Academy of Arts and Letters on his 80th birthday for his compositions. I've been privileged to know him for 50 years, and this poem was one of the most recent ones that he had set of mine, and it's, well, someone said it's all about death, and perhaps it is. When you're very young, you think about death, and you just can't imagine what it is. But I was thinking, I think, initially, about all the insensitive people that were around me in St. Louis. And believe me, there were plenty at the time. So that's what I was writing about, but you know, you never know what you're really writing about until you've finished it. And so it's probably about both of those things. Then the other poem is one that is probably the most popular one I've ever written. It was published many years ago in a tiny little magazine, and it was then called A Pavane for the Nursery. It's actually a very serious love poem, but it was taken up by anthologies for children, which I didn't really intend it to be. You know, I think it works very well for them, and I'm happy about that. But somebody discovered recently that it was also for any age, which is what children's poems are anyway. And they started not only reprinting it, but singing it at weddings, or reciting it at weddings. And so I have a request for its composition almost every month. And this is one of the, as you will see, one of absolutely magnificent settings. So I read the two poems. He will not hear. He will not see the leaf-green sky spread high above him, white with cloud and enemy. He will not follow high into the trees across the hills, the sharply throbbing thigh of wind, nor watch for blood the poppy spills. He will not meet the huge furred side of darkness, impelled into a word. The singer's voice will never gain his ear. His flesh will be inviolable beneath the caterpillar softness of the rain. He will not hear. He will not walk in wonder through the seasons, torn by their transparent thunder. Now touch the air softly. Now touch the air softly, step gently, 1, 2. I'll love you till roses are robin's egg blue. I'll love you till gravel is eaten for bread, and lemons are orange, and lavender's red. Now touch the air softly, swing gently the broom. I'll love you till windows are all of a room, and the table is laid, and the table is bare, and the ceiling reposes on bottomless air. I'll love you till heaven rips the stars from his coat, and the moon rows away in a glass-bottom boat, and Orion steps down like a diver below, and earth is ablaze, and ocean aglow. So touch the air softly, swing gently, and swing the broom high. We will dust the gray mountains and sweep the blue sky, and I'll love you as long as the furrow the plow, as however is ever, and ever is now.
Cloud
set to music by a Chicago composer, Liz Peterson, who has also done settings for The Wind in the Willows. Actually did a little operetta based on The Wind in the Willows. I had never written anything for children until my little son David was 4 years old. And I was sitting in our Greenwich Village apartment at the time and had something on my lap that I was working on. And David started walking up and down the floor and reciting, as children will do, saying something over and over and over. And what he said was, "A jack-in-the-box fell in the coffee and hurt himself." So I thought that was rather interesting, but I didn't think any more about it until that night when I went to bed. And then I thought, well, what did happen to that jack-in-the-box? So I made up a little poem. "The jack-in-the-box on the pantry shelf fell in the coffee and hurt himself. Nobody looked to see what had happened. There by the steaming hot urn he lay, so they picked him up with the silverware and carried him off on the breakfast tray." So I read that to David, and he thought he'd written it, and indeed he had. I didn't think anything more about writing anything else, but a few nights later, we had a little party, and people were laughing, and suddenly from behind one of the chairs, David poked out his head and said, "It's laughing time." And I thought it was a lovely idea. When you're 4 years old, there should be a time for everything, a time for eating, a time for sleeping, and why not just a time for laughing? So this is laughing time. It was laughing time, and the tall giraffe lifted his head and began to laugh. Ha ha, ha ha. The chimpanzee on a ginkgo tree swung merrily down with a tee-hee-hee. Hee-hee, hee-hee. "It's certainly not against the law," croaked Justice Crow with a loud guffaw. Ha-haw, ha-haw. The dancing bear, who could never say no, waltzed up and down with the tip of his toe. Ho-ho, ho-ho. The donkey daintily took his paw, and around they went. Hee-haw, 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 hee-haw. The moon had to smile as it started to climb. All over the world it was laughing time. Ho-ho, ho-ho, hee-haw, hee-haw, hee-hee-hee-hee, ha-ha, ha-ha. Yak. The long-haired yak has long black hair. He lets it grow. He doesn't care. He lets it grow and grow and grow. He lets it trail along the stair. Does he ever go to the barber shop? No. How wild and woolly and devil-may-care a long-haired yak with long black hair would look when perched in a barber chair.
It's certainly not against the law from
first poem, Laughing Time, I started, and heard David say it's Laughing Time, I started very, very quickly in the next couple of weeks to write a whole series of them, a little book. And I thought, well, you know, it's something publishable, and there weren't many children's books of poems then being published. But I gave it to my agent, and he said, well, I'm sorry, but I cannot remember what it was like to be 4 years old, so you better try somebody else. So he sent me to a woman agent who handled only children's work, and she said, well, I don't care whether it's by A. Milne or Robert Louis Stevenson, we can't publish a book of poems. I can't find a publisher for a book of poems. So I was very disappointed, and I started sending it around to magazines, and I got poems taken by Ladies' Home Journal and Harper's Bazaar, and then finally I sent it to the Atlantic Monthly, and they kept it for months, and finally the treasurer of Little Brown published the books for Atlantic Monthly, read through the manuscript, and he never had any children, but he said, this is publishable, and so they published it. I'm happy to say it's been, with the addition of other selections from other books, it's been in print ever since then, 1955. I've done a number of books since then for children, and one of the most recent is called a beautiful book. Well, I say it's beautiful because of the illustration, Around My Room. And the illustrator of that book is right here in the front row. I hope you'll meet him afterwards. He is the very celebrated Danish composer, artist and illustrator who's illustrated more than 100 books. I think mine was 101st, and I recommend it to you, his wonderful illustration. So this is another series of poems, partly from Laughing Time and partly from other books, and about birds and beasts. And these poems were set by Donna Kelly Eastman, a composer I met at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. And she was then working on an opera, and she put the opera aside and decided she wanted to set these to music. And I'll read them first. Whale. When I swam underwater, I saw a blue whale sharing the fish from his inner pail with in an undersea park with 2 turtles, a shark, an eel, a squid, and a giant snail. When dinner was over, I saw the blue whale pick up his guests in his inner pail and swim through the park with 2 turtles, a shark, an eel, a squid, and a giant snail. Turkey. With his fantail spread as if for a show, the turkey gobbler gobbles and struts. He's a beautiful bird, he wants you to know. No ifs, no ands, no buts. Porcupine. A fat pincushion all covered with pins, where his middle leaves off and his bottom begins. Ladybug. Ladybug, ladybug, life is so brief. Why linger so long on that lacy leaf? Seal. And actually this is a poem that was published many years after it came out in one of my books by Jacques Cousteau in one of his magazines. And I was terribly impressed myself because I was one of the great admirers of Jacques Cousteau. It so happens that when he was made a member of the French Academy a few years ago, I was there, and I was able to walk up to him and shake his hand and say that I had the privilege. I don't think he knew who had chosen the poem for the magazine, but anyway, I was very happy to have the association with him. This is Seal. See how he dives from the rocks with a zoom. See how he darts through his watery room, past crabs and eels and green seaweed, past fluffs of sandy minnow feed. See how he swims with a swerve and a twist, a flip of the flipper, a flick of the wrist, quicksilver, quick, softer than spray, down he plunges and sweeps away. Before you can think, before you can utter words like dill pickle or apple butter, back up he swims past stingray and shark, out with a zoom, a hoop, a bark. Before you can say whatever you wish, he plops at your side with a mouth full of fish. Peacock. When the peacock proudly ambles by, he has in his blue-green tail unfurled more dazzling spots than stars in the sky or capitals on the map of the world. Tortoise. The tortoise, when it makes its rounds, does not proceed by leaps and bounds. It takes its time. It eats and sleeps, and then sets out, and on it creeps, and stops again, and eats and sleeps, sets out again, and on it creeps. Cow. Cows are not supposed to fly, and so if you should see a spotted cow go flying by above a pawpaw tree in a pork pie hat with a green umbrella, then run right down the road and tell a lady selling sarsaparilla, lemon soda, and vanilla, so she can come here and tell me.
And a giant snail.
and very handsomely illustrated with woodcuts by Jacques Pizdovsky, who's a Ukrainian originally, and really a master of the woodcut. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But actually, this book was his widow allowed me to use some of the woodcuts to illustrate it. I'll read the poems that Don Kelly Eastman chose to set from this book. And I've heard them sung, but I have never heard them sung as they will be sung tonight by St. Paul. The Girl in the Black Raincoat. Thinking of you this evening, I think of mystery. I think of umbrellas of crystal shading a cinnamon sea. I think of swallow-tailed shadows enveloping history. And the past becomes the future, and the present is yet to be. And life is a rain-swept mirror through which perpetually a girl with bright hair flowing, dappled dark coat blowing, into the unknown knowing walks with me. The Lovers. Above, through lunar woods, a goddess flees between the curving trunks of slender trees. There Mazda bulbs outline the bone-white rooms, where, on one elbow, rousing by degrees, they stare, a sheet loose folded round their knees, off into space, as from Etruscan tombs. I knew this would happen once anyway, the pages get stuck. Valentine verses. I'll be you a sweet cricket till the sun freezes over and the desert is flooded and covered with clover, till it snows in the tropics and camels wear socks and grandfather wristwatches are grandfather clocks. Words by the water. Beneath the dimming gardens of the sky, that ship, my heart, now rides its anchor chain. A rumour's harbour when the world's awry, and life's direction anything but plain. Still is the wind, and softer still the rain. Sleep in my arms, my love, oh sleep, my love. Time hangs suspended, with its floating farms, its peacock green and terraced atmosphere. Now sleep awaits us, love. Lie in my arms. It is not death, but distance that I fear. Dark is the day, and dangerous the year. Sleep in my arms, my love. Oh, sleep, my love.
Of umbrellas of crystal till the sun pleases over, and the desert is flooded and covered with clover, till it snows in the tropics and camels wear socks and grandfather is torches. Our grandfather clocks. Sleep in my arms, my love. Oh, sleep, my love. Beneath the dimming gardens of the sky, that ship, my heart, now rides its anchor chain. A room is harbor when the worlds arrive, and life's direction anything but plain. Still is the wind, and softer still the rain. Sleep in my arms, my love. Oh, sleep, my love. Time hangs suspended with its floating thumbs, its peacock green and terraced atmosphere. Now sleep awaits us, love, lie in my arms. It is not death, but distance that I fear. Dark is the day, and dangerous the year. Sleep in my arms, my love. Oh, sleep, my love.
The next is a very somber song, very different from our previous selections. And it's going to be sung by Arliene Thiel, and I think you will understand with a wonderful range of her voice, you get all its full implications. This is also the work of Donna Kelly Eastman, and it won a prize, and I'm sorry to say I can't tell you what the prize it was, but anyway, it was I guess composers, women composers anyway, don't get that many prizes. Anyway, she was very happy about it. And I hadn't heard it until this was sung here by Arliene, and I would like, there is going to be a recording of it, and I think I'll be playing it again and again because it's very beautiful. I wrote this for a book of mine called The Cherokee Lottery, which is a sequence of poems, or really rather one long poem, about the great American tragedy, the Trail of Tears, when the Southern Indians were forced to move out of their lands and into Oklahoma. This was when, in 1830, when gold was discovered on Cherokee land in northern Georgia, the Cherokees were forced to leave, and the other southern nations, the Choctaws, the Chickasaws, joined them, and it was a terrible, terrible time. So this is Old Cherokee Woman's Song. They have taken my land, they have taken my home. They have driven me here to the edge of the water. Cold is the ground, and cold the red water. All night the men come to circle the campground. They carry tall reeds, each topped with a feather, a bright eagle feather, to draw our eyes upward and bring us all hope for the bitter, long journey. But for me, the reed's broken, and the sky, it has fallen, where black storm clouds gather. Cold is the ground, and cold the red water. My blood, it will mix with the flowing red water. They have taken my land, they have taken my home. I go now to die beyond the red water. brings together the elements that I hope are in this evening, the lightheartedness as well as the tragedy. It's been beautifully set as a trio by Christopher Berg, a really very remarkable composer whose work I didn't know, as I heard this poem this week for the first time. And he wants to do several other poems of mine. I hope very much he will. He has done, he's written an opera based on Cymbeline of Shakespeare, and he's written art songs all the way, using poems all the way from Shakespeare and Goethe down to Frank O'Hara. So this poem is called Letter. Because a stamp will bear the damp, an envelope will bear a stamp. Stamp and envelope unite and fly together through the night to reach the empty letterbox a lean, uncertain hand unlocks. Confronted with the cruel prose which stamp and envelope enclose, distraught, a young man locks his door, paces up and down the floor, while metal rollers cross his brain 100 times and then again, until, as if congealed entire, he kneels before a blazing fire and sinks a knife into its heart. Stamp and envelope depart. Wet with tears, they rise in flame, leaving no address or name, only saffron ash that curls around dissolving blue ink swirls, relinquishing the dark alone, words written by the wind on stone.